Hey guys, MVC here from the Scampro Gaming tab for another video review. This time EVGA have sent us not a graphics card, but their brand new EVGA TorQ X10 Carbon gaming mouse. Their premium edition of the TorQ X10. There is of course a standard, more plasticky version, but we've got the top end Carbon. So yeah, let's go ahead and get straight into it. The TorQ X10 Carbon is an ambidextrous mouse with a real carbon fiber surface, as in the name. It comes in at a length of 4.5 inches and a width of 2.25 inches and a height starting at 1.25 inches, but through the included tool it can be increased to 1.5 inches, giving access to a wide variety of hand sizes. Now the sensor inside is the EVGA 9800 with a maximum DPI of 8200, although we personally are going to be running at 1800, and I suspect a lot of you at home are going to be lowering that down as well. Unless you have triple 4K display, you're not really going to be hitting those higher DPI values anyway. Now the weight comes in at 121 grams without the cable, and that's without the weights as well, and through the weights can be increased to 134, both of which I have to say are on the heavier side. I do like my mice to come in at around 105 maximum without weights installed, but we'll see how we get on later on. Now to gain access to the weight system, we have to remove the mouse 1 and mouse 2 buttons by pushing forward at the front and lifting up at the back. Once inside, we can insert a maximum of 2 out of the 6 included weights. Now underneath the mouse we have real PTFE low friction mouse feet, and the cable is a braided cable with a black nickel USB connector at the end. So before we jump into some gameplay, let's first have a look at the Unleashed software that comes bundled with the TorQ X10 Carbon gaming mouse. You're going to want to get up to date from the EVGA website just so you're not running into any issues such as bugs or slight hiccups that may have already been fixed. So if we go ahead and click the information icon right here, you can see we're running 1.23 firmware and the application is 1.5.7. In other words, we got the latest that is available on the website. But this is what you're greeted with. The upper section right here is persistent. The lower section you're going to be able to change through these 5 tabs: button assignment, button settings, advanced settings, macro and profile management. The top section is anything you want to be getting quick access to and changing at any given time. That's why it's persistent, so you can quickly change the DPI, your Windows sensitivity, although if you use raw input or direct input on games it's going to kind of ignore this. But yeah, this goes all the way up to 10. Now that's kind of weird because for those of you that are in the know, you know that control panel sensitivity goes up to 11, 611 being default, but 511 right here is essentially 6 to 11. It doesn't make any changes, you don't have to worry about that whatsoever. Just leave that as it is and just change the DPI if you need to. Now on the right hand side we got lighting control for both the mouse wheel and the EVGA logo. So at the moment we have got red on both of them, as you can see, or it may look a little bit orange but it's red. But what we can do is change the first one to green, the second one to, well, yellowy green it looks like, and this should update the mouse right here, as you can see. So that's pretty cool. You can customize it a little bit to your liking, but again, would have perhaps liked to have seen grey or metallic left and right side buttons, just so I can actually not have colors that clash. That's my one kind of feedback in terms of the design or looking at the mouse aesthetically, so to speak. But here you've also got your brightness for your lighting as well if you actually want to change that, but I suspect most of you don't. But here we got button assignment, and with the mouse you can change it from left to right handed grip. This essentially just changes mouse 4 and mouse 5 from the left to right hand side. You don't have to worry about going into button settings and reassigning, i.e. forward and i.e. backwards, to go forward and backward on your web pages. But again, it's just almost like a meaningless button, so to speak. You could do it manually, but what's important here is that all buttons are enabled. There are a few mice on the market that are ambidextrous with buttons on both the left and the right that don't let you use them both, so it's good that you can. And obviously right here you can pretty much rebind anything to anything you want. I don't want to do mouse 1, that'd be a really bad idea, but you get the point. So we'll go ahead and hit default. If we hit button settings, this is where you can reassign all the buttons as you see fit. All the way down here you've got rapid fire if you want it, changing profiles at the bottom here. You can have different settings for everything stored on the mouse, and so on and so forth. Under advanced settings, we've got DPI, operating system, and LED. Under DPI, we've got 5 DPI steps that can be toggled by default using the top 2 buttons on the mouse. By default, you've got 800, 1600, 3200, 5000, and 8200. I actually use 1800, so we're going to actually increase that to that in increments of 50. And if you want, you can change the sensitivity on the X or Y axis. So some people like to lower down the sensitivity on the Y axis because you don't always aim up and down as much as allows you to do left and right. And if you're aiming at heads, sometimes minimal movement on the horizontal, or rather vertical pane, can actually be useful sometimes. And of course our polling rate 125 to 1000, and we want 1000, which is 1 millisecond. Now, in the operating system, we've got angle snapping, allowing you to draw straight lines much easier if you enable it. This can be good for Counter-Strike, kind of similar to what I was saying about the horizontal and vertical sensitivity. As well as lowering the vertical sensitivity, you can also enable angle snapping to help draw a straighter line, which if you're aiming at headshots can make things a whole lot easier. So it's nice that you can enable it if you want it. But personally, I like the raw feeling, so I have it disabled. Mouse acceleration, we want that off. Operating system sensitivity, again, like the top, should go to 11. It's kind of weird, but 5 is 6 of 11, so that's fine. Mouse scroll speed, we're going to leave that at default. I don't want to change that. And double click speed, I don't want to change that. I'd almost like a default button next to some of these if I could. And then you've got your speed button test, as you can see here. Under LED, we've got, obviously for our scroll wheel and our EVGA logo, plus the DPI here. We've got our two controls like at the top here, and you can actually set individual brightness levels here rather than having to, toggle through this one. Next one along, we have macro. Here you can set a number of different macros to record different things for World of Warcraft. Can be useful to line up different spells, so on and so forth. Personally, I don't use macros, but I know some of you will. So again, it's nice that it is here. And obviously here, macro management as well as to ones you've already got. And finally, profile management. You can give them names, all that kind of thing. Save them to your local hard drive. Take them with you to events that might not have them there already if you can't remember your settings. So that's cool. But yeah, I guess it's got pretty much everything I'd like to see. The only thing I would have preferred is to have some control over the liftoff distance. But again, being a laser sensor, typically it's really low and you can't usually make any changes to that. But yeah, overall very satisfied with the driver software for the EVGA Carbon X10 mouse. A few things I'd like to see added, but again, nothing out of the realm of possibility. So really a good first attempt for EVGA here on their software. Impressed, especially because rather than having two different software sets for both the keyboard and the mouse, you can utilize just the one, which is something I like with the Logitech software as well. It just saves messing around with all these different installs. But yeah, onto some gameplay. So we've been using the mouse for about 4 to 5 days now, and the first thing I instantly noticed when I first started playing was how comfortable it was. Now, I'm particularly a fan of right-handed mouse, and when it came to using an ambidextrous mouse, I've not used one since the SteelSeries Xi, actually, which was a long time ago. I've always been a right-handed user ever since the Microsoft IntelliMouse 3.0, the Razer Death out of the MX518, the G400, the Asus ROG Gladius, the G402, the G502, you get my picture. Ambidextrous mice are kind of off the radar because I just used to find them a little bit iffy to hold. I'd occasionally press the right hand side buttons by mistake, all that kind of thing. But from using the TorQ X10 Carbon, I had no trouble. It was one of the most comfortable palm grip mice that I've ever used, which is kind of interesting because it's not even a palm grip mouse. On top of that, fingertip and claw grip, I cannot see anybody having an issue with. The only thing, it was definitely on the heavier side, even with all the rates removed. And after, a few hours of playing with the mouse, I kind of felt like I needed to swap to something lighter or take a break because I don't know, it's almost like an oversight that a few of these companies have made recently, where the mouse is just a little bit too heavy for people like me. And again, I'm the 1%, I moan about the little things that nobody really cares about, but it really is just on the heavier side for me. Now, in terms of a legitimate issue that could affect a lot of people, and again, I say a lot of people, still just the 1% probably, is the use of the true laser sensor, because developing muscle memory is based on you knowing how far the cursor is going to move in game, no matter how fast or slow you move your mouse. When you use a laser sensor, if you move it slower or move it faster, the cursor does have a slight deviance as to how far it's actually going to move in game. Even disabling it in the software will not completely remove acceleration. So developing muscle memory can be a little difficult. And for that reason, I gotta say, always in the back of my head, I was thinking about it. It didn't necessarily affect me. There've been a lot of players that win tournaments with mice with acceleration and even enabling it themselves, but it was just in the back of the head. I knew it was always there, no matter how small it was always potentially going to be an issue for me. And I just don't like to think about products when I play. So maybe in future I'd like to see the use of an optical sensor. But in real world, looking at the clips of me playing, also playing and feeling how the mouse performed, I didn't really feel any acceleration anyway. And for that reason, the mouse really did perform well. And I don't have too many complaints about it. That's all I can really say. It's a short segment, again, for a long time playing with the mouse. Counter-Strike, Quake, Team Fortress 2. We've also played some League of Legends with it as well. And again, having the option to put things on the right side buttons if you want to is always a good thing. If you've got some, let's say, trinket in League of Legends you want to put on, or something else, you can do so. But yeah, overall, I guess quite impressed with the TorQ X10. Just a few little nitpicks. Okay, so final thoughts for the TorQ X10 Carbon gaming mouse. I've got to say, for a first attempt at a true gaming mouse from EVGA, along with the keyboard that's coming soon and the included TorQ X10 Carbon gaming mousepad, I gotta say, really good job all around. And to be honest, I'm going to go ahead and call it right here. This is probably the most comfortable ambidextrous mouse I've used in a long time, since the days of the original Razer Abyssus and Microsoft IntelliMouse WMO. It really is a comfortable mouse all around. It's maybe on the heavier side, even with all the weights removed. So if you do like lighter mice, please check out the non-carbon edition, preferably. But a lot of people at Eurogamer last weekend were liking the carbon edition more than the standard. So a lot of people are clearly not like me. But let's nitpick a little bit and talk about what I'd like to see improved maybe in future revisions and also maybe in software updates. So firstly, the use of a laser sensor is something that we sort of went into earlier on. I like to be able to know that my mouse has no acceleration because I don't want to track the enemy with my eyes and cross it and hit mouse 1 all the time. Sometimes I want to flick the mouse and every time I want to end up in the same spot, no matter how slow or fast I move it. And laser sensors and the TorQ X10 do have a small amount of acceleration that cannot be disabled in the drivers. So even though you've got the checkbox in the drivers that allows you to add on additional acceleration, there is a base amount that is always there. Now that's not necessarily a bad thing, as if we cast our eyes into Quake Live, on Quake 3 as well, Quake 4 even, there was a player called Kilsen who won a lot of tournaments and also placed high in numerous others using the Logitech G9X, which has the 9800 ADNS laser sensor. Also has a small amount of positive and negative acceleration, but at the end of the day, it's so small, it barely makes a difference. The people that complain are people like me with a 1% that are really going to notice the difference. And look at Counter-Strike Global Offensive, a lot of people using the SteelSeries Sensei as well, and that has a laser sensor over the Kana V3, which has an optical sensor. So it doesn't affect everybody and you can still win tournaments with it. It's just something to point out, because if we're going to strive for perfection, let's face it, good players are going to win any product, but if we're going to strive for perfection, we'd like to see an optical sensor moving forward. But in terms of everything else about the mouse, it really is fantastic. We are nitpicking. Now, the only other thing I'm going to say is that in the drivers, it would have been nice to see the colors, and again, nitpicking here, rotate, because you can pick one color for each profile, and that's it. Breathing, steady, that's the lighting modes. I would like to see them rotate through all the colors, specifically with obviously the launch of all the RGB products from other manufacturers. It would have been nice to rotate through all the included colors on the LED inside. But yeah, in terms of button response, size of the mouse, everything else, the buttons aren't accidentally hit on the left or the right. It is a great first product from EVGA, and I'm really excited to see what else they have coming in the future, because they clearly have a lot of grasp on what a lot of competitive players want. They're just missing the sensor inside that someone like I want. But yeah, that's it. Again, this is exclusive to Scan, guys. If you're on the UK and in the market and you want to check out the X10, please go ahead on scan.co.uk. It is the only place. And again, get the cheaper edition if you want something a little bit lighter. The one thing I will address right at the end is I have seen reports of people breaking the mouse 1 and mouse 2 buttons because the weights aren't inside. What you want to do is push down on the top of the mouse 1 and 2 buttons and also lift up at the back. And what this is going to do is allow you to bring it off quite easily. Then simply put it down at the front and then push forward from here, and we're all good again. You won't break it if you're careful. But yeah, cheers guys. I've been MVs here for the Scan Pro Gaming Tab. Hope you enjoyed the video. Any questions or comments, leave them below, and we'll catch you next time.